With Singapore looking to form air travel bubbles, we want to know which country would you want Singapore to form an air travel bubble with?
And now that's the question we're asking today, and the results so far: Korea is in the lead by quite a long way, followed by Japan, Thailand, New Zealand, Malaysia and China.
Now, if you're wondering why these 6 countries specifically, Singapore already has some form of travel arrangements with or is in the process of discussing such arrangements with them. Now, you can take part in the poll by clicking on the link below. Now, while travel plans are up in the air for many of us, plans are underway in Singapore for Phase 3. Now, Dylan, what are you looking forward to the most when Phase 3 happens?
That's a good question. Now, I think for me personally, it would be the resumption of sports-related activities. I think I really miss, the opportunity to play football, like 11-a-side games.
With a bigger group, is it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Right. Now, for that to happen, of course, the 5-person limit has to be removed, right? Health Minister Gan Kim Yong alluded to the removal of the limit in time if everyone continues to cooperate and keep their guard up. This is part of the Phase 3 roadmap to be unveiled in the coming weeks.
The roadmap will include the expected timeline for moving to Phase 3, changes to current regulations on the size of group gatherings and participation at mass events. Deputy Prime Minister Heng Swee Keat said Singapore is adopting a 4-pronged strategy to further reopen safely in the coming months.
The 4 areas are securing early access to effective vaccines, enhancing testing capabilities, conducting swift contact tracing and isolation of infected individuals, and adhering to safe management measures. We're now joined by Associate Professor Hsu Li Yang to discuss what Phase 3 might look like. He is the Infectious Diseases Program leader at the National University of Singapore's Swee Hock School of Public Health. So, Prof. Hsu, looks like it won't happen anytime soon, but what can we expect in Phase 3?
Hello and good afternoon. Well, only the government will know exactly at this stage, but I tend to see the different phases as signposts along a continuum of restrictions. And where these signposts are, we only know when they are revealed to us. So in Phase 3, what we can probably expect are permission for larger group gatherings, maybe opening up of air travel via the air travel bubbles that was in the Straits Times and other news, perhaps dining with and meeting family and friends in groups of greater than 5. But there are certain measures that we expect to remain, like wearing of masks in the public and the electronic contact tracing measures such as trace together and safe entry.
Now, Professor, the limit on public group gatherings has been gradually relaxed. For example, at the workplace, weddings and religious activities. But private group gatherings, like you rightly mentioned, are still strictly kept at 5. With the authorities emphasizing the need for public cooperation so that the limit can be removed in time. Why are we being, extra careful in this regard?
Well, I expect these limits to also ease over time, particularly when Phase 3 starts. But I believe the key is actually to avoid a situation where exponential or super spreader transmission of the virus can occur, such as if an unsuspecting infected individual meets multiple groups of more than 5 persons within the same day, then that will create a situation where it becomes much harder for contact tracing and for isolating all the contacts.
Prof, so you rightly mentioned as well that yesterday in Parliament there were a slew of measures announced. One of them, of course, Minister Ong Ye Kung announced that new requirements for travellers are being planned so that they won't have to go through the 2-week stay-home notice, which is a travel deterrent. This is a 2-part question. So first, what are the considerations to think about for this removal to happen? And what are the challenges you foresee when implementing the alternatives to the SHN?
Thank you. So I think for the first part, in my mind, there are 2 key considerations. The first and most important is that we must be confident that the countries where these travelers have come from or passed through have COVID-19 under control. So places like China, New Zealand, or Taiwan, for example. I think we are also likely to require that the travelers be tested for COVID-19 before departure and after arrival in Singapore. So you can imagine that for challenges, I think the key is to have sufficient laboratory capacity and an efficient flow of testing for passengers passing through Changi Airport or other ports of entry, which I think will be increasingly important as the number of visitors ramp up.
Well, thank you, Prof, for coming on the show. We were speaking to Associate Professor Hsu Li Yang, Infectious Diseases Program Leader at NUS's Swee Hock School of Public Health.